legend!
You're right guys, Mr. Juggy here and welcome to a brand new Black Ops 3 Zombies video. In today's video it is going to be the top 5 most underrated zombie maps of all time, decided by me. And this is based on my opinion, so if you disagree, please put a comment in the comment section down below, posting your top 5 most underrated maps. But without further ado, let's just get into the number 5 position. And before I get started, none of these are actually, you know, like my first one is the most underrated. It's in no particular order, so don't hate on that at all. But anyway, let's just get into the number 5 spot. And quite funnily, it is the map 5, and this is basically underrated because it's a very hard map and it's quite a tedious map, simply because there are 3 levels to it, and if you get stuck on the lower one, it's sort of a dark, dingy, depressing, hard to get out of situation, and it's not very good for training, running about, and basically it's a death trap if you do get stuck in there. Me playing it with my friends, I actually really enjoyed it. It's so fun and creative. I mean, you're playing in the Pentagon. It's one of the best zombie maps that you could beat. I mean, for me, I've always wanted to have a sort of Walmart, sort of Tesco experience as a zombie map. I think running around in the aisles would be very, very good. You could build sort of carts. That's just always been my fancy. But the Pentagon, I mean, come on, it'd be one of the best zombie maps ever. But for some people, it just really didn't do it for them. But for me, playing as President Nixon and all these different presidential characters, it was very fun, and I think a lot of people just didn't like it because it didn't have the 4 original characters and the Easter egg wasn't too special. But for me, as I said, really enjoy it. That's why it has the number 5 spot. Now coming in at the number 4 spot, it is the gameplay you're seeing on screen. It is Shadows of Evil. Not many people like it just because it's sort of squid-like, it's unusual, we haven't seen it before, it's with 4 different characters that we're not used to, it's not our Origins or COD 5 characters, and it's very annoying and takes ages to set up. But if you're just playing it casually, not as a content creator or not as someone who tryhards and tries to get those high rounds, if you're just casually playing the game, it's actually one of the funnest maps ever. And if you don't mind doing the rituals all the time and it taking half an hour to do the rituals, then it is one of the funnest maps. They've got so many components to it, there's got so many activities and things that you can do in it. It's got the sword, the shield, pack-a-punch, that it feels like you're doing an Easter egg in itself, and I just think it's got hated quite a lot on, just because even when you start up the map, it takes ages to load, it takes ages to get pack-a-punch, and it shouldn't be that complicated, but it is. But it's just been demolished and it shouldn't have been, in my opinion. Now coming in at the number 3 spot is a Black Ops 1 legend for me, basically because I spent so much time on it and me and my friends just bashed it out. It is Ascension, and it didn't really do much for the storyline. It didn't have an incredible map setting. It was basically just on this rocket test facility, and basically if you got Pack-a-Punch open, you sent a rocket up onto the moon or some random place, and that's how you got Pack-a-Punch open. You could destroy the rocket, and every 5 or so rounds, monkeys would come and nick your perks, and that's what threw a lot of people off. You couldn't build up, train, and be a bit of a bash with the map because you couldn't have really more than 2 perks if you're playing solo, and you can't really have more than 4 perks if you're playing 4 player. I know on Black Ops 1 it's quite difficult to get more than 4 perks, but on Ascension it was possible. If you didn't let a monkey destroy any of your perk machines, then you did get rewarded a free perk, so you could have more than 4. But for me it was so good because it's sort of the whole genre. I didn't get the sort of feeling that I did with Kino and other maps in Black Ops 1 as I did with Ascension. It's sort of just an iconic map for me because of the time when I was playing with it with my friends. It was just really exciting to play and a really enjoyable map personally for me. Now coming in at the number 2 spot, it is Shangri-La, and this is probably one of the most difficult maps on the whole list, basically because of how annoying the traps were. The Pack-a-Punch was quite difficult, and I personally never really got to grips with it, but if you actually stripped it to bare bones, the wonder weapon, it was so good. The scenery, the whole map location, the way the game actually flowed, it was all very smooth and creative. And if you think of a perfect map location, sort of a pyramid first comes to mind. I mean, Egypt, sort of. I think that was a setting of Shangri-La, and it was all very nice. And believe it or not, it was the first ever zombie map that included women zombies, and that is basically the only reason it gets on this list. Now, that's not true, but put in the comment section down below if you enjoyed the map or any other maps on my list. Now, coming in at the number 1 spot, it is very controversial, but for me, I had a lot of fun playing this map. It is Tranzit. And it's basically the number 1 spot because it was supposed to be built on the PlayStation 4. They were rushed, they wanted to take the time with it. It was a bit too much for the last gen sort of mechanics and motor and power and engine. It was just too much for the PlayStation and Xbox to hold, so they had to cut it back. There was a lot more glitches, it was a lot more laggy, and it's basically not what they wanted, which is why it didn't turn out the best, funnest map. It took hours to set up, it took hours to get the perks. Waiting for the bus was so annoying. It could have been so much easier if you could have called for the bus, and those little denizens in the fog just didn't exist. And they're the only reasons why I think that a lot of people hated on the game. But if, as I said before, if you just play the game simply because you love zombies and you want to get high rounds, but you don't care how long it takes, and you're just playing with your friends for fun, Tranzit can be a very enjoyable experience. But like, these YouTubers really do impact what the general community thinks, and for YouTubers, content creators, going on Shadows and trying to get gameplay and sort of pack-a-punch tips and tricks, it's very difficult because it takes hours to set up, so they would get a hatred for the map, which would mean that they would pass their hatred onto us, and it'd sort of get out of hand, and loads of people are calling the Tranzit one of the biggest mistakes and one of the worst maps out of all, when it should have been like Treyarch's baby. It was one of the biggest maps at its time, and it was one of the most out there maps at its time. I think it was one of the best and one of the most creative games and maps we've had even since Black Ops 3, so that's why it gets a number 1 spot. So guys, this will be the end of my top 5, and if you did enjoy at any point, please drop a like, subscribe and comment in ways to improve my next Black Ops 3 video. But until then,